Okay, I wanted to show you one more version of manipulating the points on a grid. And so for this one, I'm using the hexagonal grid, and these grids are under vector grid, so you can get different versions of the grid. But for this, I have a hexagonal grid, and in the past triangular one, we just went in and used the points that came out from there, which are on the centers. But what if you wanted to put them on the intersections, right? So if you want to do that, you can use this little discontinuity, which actually goes in and looks for the edges of corners. So what it's doing is it's taking these cells, right, which are basically curves, and they do overlap where the cells overlap, and it's finding the points at those intersections. And then what you can do is get rid of the extra points that overlap by culling the duplicates. You would flatten the list, right? So I'm flattening the list here. And if you look at the list length coming out of here, it's 72. And then this culled duplicates just looks for duplicate points and gets rid of them. So you can see that it's gotten it down to 38 right there. You could not cull the duplicates, but you just get multiple profiles on top of each other, which is not super efficient. So in order to use these guys, you just have to get rid of the extra ones, right? And so that's just giving us the points. And then of course, if we preview our curve here, there it is. And this is still doing the bounding box with the area centroid in the middle, so giving us the center of that guy. And then we're just using the orient again to take the source. So we're taking the centroid here as the source, and then the target are the points we culled the duplicates from, right? So it just takes this point and matches it with all of those points that we just made. I also have a scale in here, right? So in between that scaling, you can scale these up and down. Again, you could kind of skip this, right, if you wanted to, and just take the curve geometry and plug it right in, and you wouldn't be able to scale it, but it would just directly take that curve and put it on there. So this is just a scale, and then I can push that into there, and it gives me that, right? And then you can do obviously whatever you want. If I preview this hatch, we did that before. If we turn that off and I preview this guy and then turn this guy off, right, now you're getting that, and then I could come back here and of course get rid of all this stuff. So you're starting to get that overall pattern, or you could duplicate just like we talked about in the bake up here with that one. So that is a possibility. You could also hook in the polar array version instead of the curve. So instead of this, you could polar array this, but you could also do a polar array of using Grasshopper. And then if we plug it in exactly the way that this guy is plugged in, so I'm going to pull this geometry right into the geometry for the scale, and then I'm going to pull, let me pull this down, and then I'll pull this geometry into the content for the box, right? And if we, let's go ahead and turn this off, it's a little confusing, and turn this guy on, right? So we're not getting exactly what we want, which is this guy here, right? So we want this guy copied, and it's only doing one thing, and that's because we have multiple pieces on there. And so what you can do, there's multiple ways of doing this, but you can take this graphed tree and pull it into the geometry for the scale, right? So if I pull that into the geometry for the scale, or directly into, if I pull it directly into here, and let's pull down the scale a little bit, right? Oh, not the scale. It'll actually copy it right there. If I pull it into the geometry for the scale, let's get it into the scale, right? And then pull that geometry into the orient, then I'm going to be able to scale that guy, right? And not only can I scale it, let's get it sort of where it's overlapping a little bit, I can then come in and sort of control the polar array, right? Like I can start to pull this guy around, or change the number, right, that I have. and get a different sort of form to it. So maybe I'll do 2, and you'll start to get that. So anyway, you can kind of play around with this, and then if I do a preview here, come in and get rid of all of that. All right, and those guys. And then there's not actually going into one piece, and you can see from this curve that there is a list of lists. So if you actually flatten that, it'll then do all of them, or it'll do each one individually, right? So remove the flatten. And this graph tree is exactly as coming in here and doing graphed. So you can just see it outside. So same sort of thing. You can watch the end of this guy and get this to do the baking and hatching and all that kind of stuff. So anyhow, I think that's about it. So really the complexity gets going very, very fast, right? So so take a look at how these guys work, and hopefully get some stuff out.